Welcome to Probate Weekly. I'm Bill Gross at Bill Gross Probate and social media. We get together every week and talk about how we can serve our customers better in probate and trust administration real estate throughout the country. I'm a real estate broker based in LA, building a national network of professionals and referring business nationally. And I work with real estate agents, the best ones across the country. Excited today to have back previous guest and in one of our favorite cities, Randy Milmeister from Las Vegas, Nevada. Randy, how you doing?
I am doing great. Thanks for having me back, Bill.
Longtime friend before I was in probate real estate about 6 years ago, so we're really glad to have him here. So how'd you end up in the probate space?
You know, it's interesting. It's actually, it had to be 10, 11, probably 12, 13 years ago. I met an agent through Mike Ferry. He's in San Jose. And he said, "Hey, Randy, you gotta go to this probate class." It was a guy, Mike Torres, MTI Education, out of Long Beach. Mm-hmm. And he said, you got to do it. I'm telling you, this is something you got to check out. So that was like 12, 13 years ago. I went to a class. I thought, this is great. At the time, though, it would have been overwhelming for me to add that source in. I did kind of, I guess, put it out there and that I would start working probate. And I was a broker at the time, so I had a probate attorney come and speak to our office, and then he referred a listing to me. And so that was my first probate deal.
Nice. And so like a lot of agents, I think we stumble into one, we notice it's complicated, we notice that customers aren't getting service properly. What was it about the probate? You obviously had one that, and an agent says it's a good opportunity, but something must have struck you personally. You said, I can help out here, or I can create some more value for my customers here. What is that struck you about it?
Well, I took the class, again, it was 12, 13 years ago, and then I took the same class again. I was like, wow, this is just really interesting to me. And what I felt that, we all, different people have different fears. I remember when I was growing up, my best friend, even though he ended up writing a best-selling book about serial killers, but he was afraid of blood. If we watched a movie that had blood in it, he would pass out. It was I don't know why I just thought of that reference, but it's the same thing with death, or end of life or life transition, where I felt like probably most people would be uncomfortable having these conversations. And I felt that it was something, I don't want to call it natural, because I before learning about probate and this area of real estate, it was something that I never thought of. But after just learning more about it, I just felt that this is an area of, I do real estate. I not necessarily enjoy having these conversations, but I'm comfortable with the conversations. There's not a fear base there for me. And I thought I could, it'd be somewhere that I could help. And it's been one of the best decisions I've made.
I think part of it is, because I know you pretty well, is that you're not shy about doing the work. And in probate real estate, I find two kinds of real estate agents. There's ones that go into it because it's easy. You just have to get certified, and then you buy the data and the business just comes in. It's easy. A lot of people dying and they have to sell the real estate, and it's easy. And the services that sell the data tell us that. There's other people who look at a deal and see a problem and want to fix it, find another problem, fix that, find another problem, fix that. And they go, wow, that was interesting. I'm not against doing that again. What's all that about? And they find out that probate maybe is the source of some of that. I know that's your approach to your business, is you're willing to roll up your sleeves and get to work.
Yeah, and there's two pieces of that. One, fortunately, I had the training of making phone calls and door knocking and going and I wouldn't call it aggressively, but being outward focused on finding prospects, leads, business. So that was a natural lead in for me. That I knew that most agents were afraid to do that, or were not going to make calls or door knock or do those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. So it was even less of a barrier of entry for me to be competitive or successful in the space. And yeah, and what the second piece of that is, I'm glad, if it was easy, everybody would do it. Right. And so when I'm making phone calls and I'm talking to people about, and I'll share in a minute a reason I was actually a few minutes late today of one of the complicated probates that I'm working with right now, is that it'll, when real estate people start to work in this space and they find out that can be some very challenging conversations, not just with what is, and it happens almost once a week that a family tells me, well, Randy, this is a really complicated thing we have going on with our family. And I'm like, you're no kidding. And so I enjoy those challenges. And then anytime that happens, or if someone, thinks that I'm, and it doesn't happen often. It's probably 1 out of 1,000 conversations that someone says, we've heard these things, an ambulance chase or these other things. I'm like, oh, thank God you said that, because the next 9 agents who call will never call again, and they're going to get out of this space, which is great for us.
Yeah, I think that like I said, most people get into this because they're told it's easy, or they believe it's easy, or they're sold it's easy. And I think the one of the things that you mentioned, our mutual coach and one of our mentors, Mike Ferry, says is that the money we receive is a reflection of the value we create for other people. And so you can look at problems and challenges as obstacles, hard work, inconvenient, or you can realize that we get paid to solve those problems. And as long as we approach them with creativity and hard work, then we create value for our customers, and along the way we end up getting paid as well. And I've always felt that the distinction between a probate agent and a standard agent is a probate agent will complain about all the things they have to do to get paid, and a real probate agent will brag about all things they have to do to get paid. Right? Like a common conversation, you and I've had this one where, why is the probate so bad? I had 4 problems. I had this one that was bad. They had that and 2 more. We're like raising each other like a poker game as to whose escrow was more messed up. So one of the reasons I changed this podcast from a assigned time to a pre-record is because, like you, my life gets thrown into monkey wrenches, court hearing dates and evictions and investors and problems. Share a little bit about where you were. You mentioned that you were a few minutes late. Not that we're going to charge you for being late here. I appreciate being here, and for the fee I'm paying you, you're welcome to come late. But share with us, what does a day in the life of Randy, real estate agent doing probate, look like today? What was it? What was the episode?
So this is not this particular challenge, but in probably 80% of the probates that I work, there's gonna be months of work before we even get the property ready to sell. And that's why I tell like my escrow and title people, I'm like, hey guys, you guys cannot make any mistakes. I don't want to have any screw ups, because I've already been working on this for 8-9 months. When I get it sold and turn over to you, just close it. I don't want to hear any BS. So this, where I was today, or, I ran back to my office here to be on with you, is I was contacted because of thanks to you and Chad and things I've learned from our teachers and coaches. I have this, have been able to have some online presence. And so an administrator contacted me, it was back in November. He said, Randy, my attorney said I need to find a great probate realtor in Las Vegas. I'm calling you. You can call her and tell her that we want to work with you. We're just waiting for an eviction. The story is, mom died a year or so ago. The administrator, one of the sons, adult sons, and these are, I think he's probably in his 60s, lives in LA. Other brother lives in the house. The brother in the house would not leave. So they had to evict the brother, which took about 6 months. So when he contacted me in November, he thought the eviction was going to be over by December. But the brother, as many evictions go, who was going to be evicted, the brother, fought the eviction, got stays and motions and did all this stuff. And then finally the judge said, this is done. It's over. You're being evicted, sent the eviction to the constable. The attorney told me, okay, constable's going to go out this day. This is the first step in doing the work ahead of the actual real estate. Will you go and meet the constable and a locksmith, so that you can, make sure that whoever's in the house, and they didn't know how many people are in the house. Right now, we just know it's a brother and maybe a girlfriend or wife or something. So I meet the constable. We get in there. There's 8 or 9 people living there, 3 dogs. And this is where it's really, sad and a little unfortunate is 3 young kids, like between the ages of 2 and 5. And with what we find so many times in evictions, or when someone is should have been in the process of moving out, it's like a hoarder space. I mean, I'm going to send you pictures that I hope you'll upload to this videos, because you can't picture this unless you really see it. I mean,
Right.
you could barely, this is a 1,800 square foot, 3-bedroom house. You could barely walk through within a few inches of any space in the entire house. There's so much stuff. And, and then I look down, I see toys. I'm like, oh man, like this is not the fun part of the business. I'm not looking forward to having families move out, but they knew this was going on for months. It's not like we just showed up and then, they didn't know that they needed to move out. They knew that they weren't supposed to be there. So that was 3 or 4, that was 3 or 4 weeks ago when the eviction happened. But guess what? And I knew they would come back because I just, my experience. And we got a call from the attorney yesterday that code enforcement was out there and they saw people going in and out of the house. They asked me, Randy, will you go back out there and secure the house? Of course. So I went out there today, and of course the people are in there. And and fortunately this time they were friendly. Sometimes they'll yell and scream and all this stuff, but they were friendly. They understood, and I maybe it's also part of my experience that they understood. I want to let them know. Look, if it was up to me, I would help you guys get all this stuff out of here and get all your stuff and give you time to, sell it and whatever. But I just needed to be out of the house. I needed to secure it, in the next 10. And I let them know, or I called it. I got her number, but when we did the eviction, to let them know when I'd be around, I said, look, if you're at the house, you got to wrap it up and get out of there. So I went back to the house to secure it. Now, we're probably still a month at least away before I'll actually be able to list and sell the house. What'll have to be done between now and then is I'm waiting for the administrator to come in town, because even though I sent him the pictures, there's just stuff in the house. It doesn't speak to all the holes in the walls and the doors torn off and the electrical and plumbing is all screwed up. So I said, look, you got to come out here. You got to see this so that we can come up with a reasonable price that'll get the house sold, because not many, but what some people think of property, whether it's their own house they live in or a property they inherit, they think it's worth $10 million. Right. And it's worth $200,000. So I'm not going to be able to do this on the phone. I can send you pictures. But I need to come out here. We need to review this. I don't even know in this case if it's, usually I'll recommend cleaning up a property, trashing out, doing a little cleaning, maybe some painting, clean out a pool, with some of the vendors we've talked about before that, that Executorium is such a great service for. Usually I'd recommend that, but in this case, there's so much damage that spending $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, you're not going to get a return on it. So I share this because it's common. It's not like you're not going to believe the story that I had on a probate property. This is what it is. This is what the business is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big chunk of it. Now, it doesn't have to be all of it, and I think there are agents, at least in my market, who focus on the high-end trust, and they get the $2 million and up, beautiful home, trust properties, and I got some of those, but I don't make a living on those. I don't get enough of them consistently. I wish I had those relationships. I work at it, but the bread and butter is like what you're describing, and I also think this is where the need is. And as an agent, I can distinguish myself as I can solve some of these problems like you are. You mentioned the heir who's living in the property. I find that a very common problem. There's kind of the child that never launched. And at best, they're going to get a share of the equity of the house. But at some point, they need to start taking care of their own life. They need to find a place to live that they can afford. Those are some tough decisions.
Well, Bill, in general, yeah, heirs, there are, I would say young adults who haven't grown out, but they're in their 60s. For this particular case I was sharing, these brothers are in their 50s or 60s. So it's not, if it hasn't happened by now, I don't know, where do you go from here?
Well, it's not common. And it's shocking how many people are just, there's a phrase that an author used to use. They got cooked in the squat, like a biscuit that never rose. They got cooked, kind of stuck down. And these are people who, they at 13, 14, 15, 16 live with mom and dad, and they never got out of that. And they're used to living in the house for free, but they're not entitled to the whole house. They might be entitled to half or third or quarter or less. And that's where, on one hand, we look at it as taking care of our customer, but to them, they're like an animal that you're trying to trap, and they know it. I mean, there's a certain almost feral quality to people like that, that they know that if they have to go out and pay for their own housing, it's going to be a lot less desirable, or they can't even imagine being able to live after the money runs out as they overspend it. And it's like an animal that's trapped. They're going to fight you for their life. And I think you have to be aware that there are people like that. There's, from a safety point of view and also an emotional point of view, that's how they treat you.
Bill, and you mentioned the word customer. And so in this case, and this is what I try to point out to other friends, real estate friends, or, our even colleagues like ourselves who work probate, is that there's two customers here. And the customer one is the administrator in the estate, and the other is the attorney. The attorney is going to be here in Las Vegas doing this business for years to come. I'll tell you, in at least half of the probate real estate files cases that I've worked over the years, I've never met the administrator executor. They're out of state. They're not coming to town. I closed one a few months ago where the lady was in Tucson. I think she was pregnant, or she couldn't make it up. Dad died. She was never going to come up here, and I'll never meet her. So then, how do we approach this business if we're just, working for ghost? Probably is not the good word for it, but people that we're never going to meet, and the customer here in Las Vegas that I really, I want to do a good job for anybody. Naturally, the customer I really want to show I'm doing a good job in many cases is the attorney here, who part of my goal in helping this estate move forward is developing a relationship. This will be a new attorney relationship for me.
Right. So that's in a business to business relationship, you have two customers in a sense. The person, you have your client, you have fiduciary responsibility to, and then you have responsibility to the person who referred you the business. And even if the client came to you directly and there is an attorney, you have a chance to develop a new referral relationship. And that's where the business comes from. And I think what's important, Randy, about you and me and the way we do business is our reputations are very valuable. When you just sell property and you sell to anybody, and you're running your business off of Facebook ads or Google ads or Zillow ads, you can have some customers unhappy and discard them like a hamburger wrapper. But when you make a living off of referrals from attorneys, you're on the line. I feel like every time my career is on the line, because if that attorney isn't happy, they're going to tell colleagues. It would be a real problem. Now, it hasn't happened to me, so I only can imagine what could happen. But it forces me to be accountable to that attorney as well as to kind of like the market in general. Now, the challenge is when you have conflicting attorneys. Like my client has an attorney and there's an attorney on the other side, and they want to bully me or force me to do something I know is not right. That's where you have to hopefully earn their respect. But in general, my reputation is going to be important to me. So talk a little bit about how do you develop your business? Is it mostly you get consumers and then from there work the attorneys they connect to, or do you market directly to attorneys or fiduciaries?
All of the above. So as my background in phone prospecting, the way I started with probate is to just make phone calls to the PRs. And it was actually about 5 years ago. It was right before COVID that when I really started to pursue the source of probate. And so when I would connect with a personal representative, whoever the attorney was that was working that file, after I was able to have some success there, I would call the attorney and say, hey, I would like to meet with you and see if we can help each other. I have been in Las Vegas for over 40 years. I have family and clients and friends who need a great estate planning attorney who can help them avoid the aggravation and cost of probate. And I need someone to, probably 5% of the PRs I talk to, they haven't hired an attorney yet. They're trying to do it on their own, which 90% of the time, they're not going to get through it on their own. They're going to end up hiring an attorney. So at that time...
There's no reason why you can't do it on your own. You just can't do it on your own.
Yeah, right. No, Bill, look, I've been driving for 33 years. I don't know how to change oil. I know there's people that change their own oil. I don't know how to do it, and I don't want to break my car. And
I
that's
know how to do it, and I wouldn't do it. I'm older than you because when I grew up, you had to learn how to do it because that's just the way life was. And I wouldn't do it today. I would just let the car go and call somebody. Somebody's gonna fix it for me. I'm not gonna do it.
right. So going back to the attorney. So during that time, and then COVID started, and I felt like I was the only, I know I wasn't the only one working, but I was one of few. And so I'd call the attorneys. I say, look, I understand we're in lockdown, mostly, but we're both, the businesses that can still operate. I'd like to come and meet with you and see how we can help each other. And I remember, and it was just so clear during this time, I called 5 attorneys. 3 of them agreed to meet in their office in person. 2 of them had me wear a face mask. And then out of that, since then, I have one consistent probate referral attorney who since 2020, 5 years, probably sends me about 5 listings a year.
Wow.
Since that time. Yeah. And I've referred business back to her. I've referred estate planning and probate back to her. So that's one. So, and since that time, there have been I have kind of worked that angle isn't the right word, but that source of when I work with a personal representative, I'll do what I can to connect with the attorneys. Look, and not all attorneys want to connect, and I don't want to connect with them. There's some that I did not, it was not a good experience for me or for the client. And I was like, well, I'm not going to refer anybody to them, and I'd rather not work with them again. But there's some who are really like in probate and estate planning. There are some attorneys who are very compassionate and caring and good people that, man, this is, who I wouldn't surround myself with. So over the last 5-ish years, I've done my best to create those referral relationships. And then the third area is I do mailing. So I mail to all of the I mail once a month. So I wait for whatever leads I get from the resource, and I'll mail them a letter. And then for the previous mailing, I'll mail them a postcard. And then there's actually now a fourth. And actually, this is coming to be one of my number one resources for attracting probate real estate business is my online presence, or what I call online asset. I've taken 3 listings this year so far from people who have found me online. And you mentioned the word a little bit ago, reputation. So before I went to that house with the eviction, actually was a lady who contacted me over the weekend, who found me online, who was living in somewhere in the Midwest. She has a house here. Husband died last year. Doesn't have to go through probate because they're joint tenant. She told me there's people living in the house. She doesn't know what to do. She's kind of got some bad direction from another real estate person and another attorney. So she found me, and I believe it's because of my reputation online that people can go and read my reviews, read how I work with families. They can see my contribution to just the probate and estate planning space. And she called me. She asked me, I said, well, let me pull a title report to make sure you don't have to go through probate. She's like, I talked to her on Sunday. I said, I'll have it by Tuesday. She said, well, I asked this other real estate agent over a month ago and she never sent it. How can you do it in 2 days? I said, can't speak for anybody else, but I'm telling you, I do what I say. So this morning or yesterday, when I got the title report, I called her and she was so, it was an easy thing for me to do to ask for a title report, but it was like, I can't think of a good metaphor right now, but she was so thrilled that I followed through with helping her to identify because she didn't know if there were liens on the property. The property is, the mortgage has not been paid, so it's in default. But it really helped. I could just hear her smile through the phone. And then today I went to stop by the house to see who's living there. And I talked to the person, a lady who has been living there, let them know that we're going to need to sell the house. And I'm here to try to make it easy for her to transition out of the house so we can get the house sold. And I guess the point of that story was just, it comes down to reputation of doing what we say we're going to do and doing it the right way.
Okay, you just covered a lot of stuff there. I'm going to go back and unpack a lot of it. But before we do that, let's just kind of set everybody where we're at so we're clear. This is the Probate Weekly podcast. I'm Bill Gross. We do this every week. As a new episode, we interview top producers in the probate real estate space. And you continue the conversation you went to on Facebook. You can ask questions, look for referrals there. You can register at probateweekly.com. Put in your email address. We'll send you reminders if you want. If you want to put your phone number in, you're welcome to. We send out text reminders occasionally. Scroll down, you get it on audio format, Spotify, Apple, all that stuff, and past episodes on YouTube. Our guest today is Randy Milmeister. He has a website he was kind of modest about, but it's clarkcountyprobatehelp.com. Clark County, which is the county Las Vegas is in, clarkcountyprobatehelp.com. It's Clark without an E. Different counties are spelled differently. And then he has a YouTube channel as well. Randy Milmeister. If you go to youtube.com, put in Randy Milmeister, you'll find all kinds of fun stuff about Vegas. You probably want to go visit him. Look, I watched his YouTube channel and I ended up visiting Vegas a couple times. So he's really kind of like the tourism class for Las Vegas as well. So let's go back and unpack a little bit. One of the things you said was that, certain people you met and you wanted to work with, other ones you were okay that you didn't work with. So one of the things, the reason why I spend so much time doing my business generation is I like to work with people who want to work with me. I just find that they're easy to work with, they're easy to communicate with, they're coachable. If you respect me as an expert, you're going to do what I recommend. If you argue with me, if I want to argue with somebody, I can just go talk to my wife. I can say that because the door's closed. But I'm just saying that in real estate, there's like a consumer class that will argue with me about things, and I'll ask them, have you ever sold a house before? Why are you arguing with me about this? What data do you have to support this? And on the flip side, that when people recognize you and see the work you've done, they call you and they know that they need your help. It sets the whole tone in motion a different way. Not that all your business comes that way, but talk about how that makes your business dealings more efficient.
Yeah, so there may have been a point in my career, and I've been in real estate now about 20 years. There was probably a point, 15 years ago where I was maybe a little more desperate, where I was compelled to force business, work with people I didn't want to. Fortunately, I've worked hard for a lot of years that I put myself in a position, or it's just my maturity, my business maturity, real estate maturity, that I can have the attitude and approach that I want things to be easy. Like, there's enough complications in the world. If I want to make things easier for people, I want to work with people who can make things easier for me, knowing that we have this, we have this challenge in front of us. We're going to unravel it together. We can see the sunlight on the other side. But let's make it as easy as possible for us to work together. And fortunately, there are some attorneys who operate that way, and there are some who don't.
I have a friend who, and then you and I both have a vendor we've worked with who moved from just probate to divorce real estate on the theory that, well, you're working with attorneys, it's kind of the same thing, buy the data. And I always, when people ask me about that, I say, it's tough enough you're married. I've been married 38 years to a great woman. It's like, I'm like you. I'm cleaning by my fingernails 1 hour at a time being married. The last thing I need to do is have customers all day complain to me about their wives are going through divorce. Right. I don't need it. I have enough friends getting divorced. I don't need the help in that area. And the same is true. I think that, their attorneys are very combative and can be very difficult to work with. And, I think I work well with them. And if they trust me and delegate to me, we do great. But when they want to start to fight with me, I realize it just doesn't really work.
For some reason, my light just went out. Let me turn my light back on. Hold on.
Okay. Technical issues, man. Technical issues.
I guess I didn't know. I have to move around, maybe.
Oh, yeah, because to save money, the little sensor thing will say, oh, you've been moving around that much.
Okay, sorry about that.
So let's talk a little bit about the business. You mentioned calling that you buy data. Do you want to pitch the data source, or you prefer not to mention them?
I don't mind saying it's probate data. Okay. I used all the leads for a while, 5-6 years ago, and I think all the leads is great. For me, in my place in the business today, probate data works better for me. I understand, and I have friends just like you. We have probate real estate friends around the country. For some areas, all the leads is better. For me, probate data is working.
Yeah, I think you have to evaluate the ones that work for you. I start with all the leads as well. Their coaching, I use their brochure. I still use the trifold brochure. For a period of time, I use their website as well. And yet, it's a competitive market, but I think it's a good place to start and look at. I recommend it. But probate data, I think it's foreclosures data is actually the company. Probate data is their other product. They do a great job. I think and I hear nothing but good things about them as well. On my website, I have a list of different data sources. I'm always looking for people's feedback on what they use. And so that's where you get the data for both calling and mailing. And I imagine the ones as they weed themselves out, you pull them out of your database, you stop mailing to them. When you call them, can you talk a little bit about your approach? What is it you do to open the door with them when you get started?
Sure. Well, before I call or mail, I have a VA, virtual assistant, who will scrub the data for real estates with property. Now, there was a time when I first started calling and mailing that, because of some of the coaching and training that I had, that recommended that, well, the ones who don't have real estate, maybe you can, talk to them about, after they get through probates, having a referral to an attorney for an estate plan, which is a good idea, but it
sounds good. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, right. So I have I have them scrubbed or audited or whatever word people use on different parts of the country.
Yeah.
And then I'll start calling. And, I use a script. I understand that there's some coaches, trainers who think scripts, scripts don't work because people don't know how to use them. It's not because of having a script or not having a script. But I like to have the script because it more comfortable in getting in a rapport with someone who is selling probate and finding out if I can help them or not, and then how I can help them. And so that's basically it. I say, hey, I'm calling for Bill. This is Randy. I see, because the data that I have, I can see if they have an attorney or not. If I recognize the attorney, because a lot of times the first kind of objection or thing they'll say is, well, we have an attorney. So I get over that first. I say, hey, I see you have one of the best attorneys in town. I've worked with them, a few times over the years. I think you're in great hands. I have a team of people here in town just to help families who are going through the probate process. To just take over where the attorneys leave off. For example, is there any property in the estate that you could use some help with? And maybe there is, or maybe they're going to hold on to the house. Sometimes that's all I have to say, and they'll tell me every detail of their life and family for the next 20 minutes. And
correct.
And that's it.
Correct.
Maybe I don't believe I'm the only one calling. Actually, I know I'm not the only one calling, because sometimes
I'm sure you're not. I'm not in Las Vegas, and I'm sure you're not the only one. I'm sure there's 20 people calling them.
Sometimes I'll talk to someone and say, "Oh, I got 20 phone calls," and that's it. But maybe it's just, again, having this maturity in this space. My goal is to make people feel comfortable. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. Either I can help them or not. If not, great. I wish you the best of luck. I hope everything from here goes smoothly for you. Is there anything in the world? Do you have any questions, thoughts that I can help you about real estate here in Las Vegas or probate? I'm happy just to answer some questions. And that's it.
And I think the phrase I've heard, it applies to other things in life too, which is the script works if you work it. And I think too often people don't get the script down to where it's natural. I know when I was in a coaching system that used phone prospecting all day long, that the beauty of the script was I wasn't thinking about what I was going to say. I was only listening for clues. And so that the words came out because I said it over and over again and I knew what to say. I could listen to them 100% of my energy rather than think about what am I supposed to say next. And that's the key, I think. The scripts, you have to really kind of work it that way. So that's the phone call. And the mail, you mentioned you do a letter and you do postcard follow-up. And then I imagine that just kind of ties in with everything else. Like they get a phone call, maybe they remember your name, maybe they don't. They get an email, a mailer, maybe they remember you, maybe they don't. They go online, maybe the attorney says, hey, there's this guy, Randy Milmeister, and they'll go, yeah, that's so funny, I remember that name from somewhere, and then figure out who you are. And so I would say it's probably accumulation of all the things together. It's really hard to pick one, but you've got to do 3 or 4 or 5 things that work in conjunction to make it work for you.
That's exactly right. And shoot, I want to share a story before I forget, before we run out of time. So this is great. This just happened yesterday. It initiated a month ago. So there's an attorney who, in the last 4 years, I did the PRs somehow. Either I contacted or they found me, and so I closed a couple probates with this particular attorney. I emailed him a couple months ago, say, hey, I saw your name on this probate file. Just reaching out, just want to let you know I'm here. Let me know if there's anything I can help you with this particular case. No, Randy, we're good on that one. But why don't we get to lunch soon next month? I said, great. And, and I had no expectation of what to get to lunch about. I'm always open. Look, it's better to meet with one great attorney than for me to, do phone prospecting for probably a month. That's about the equivalent. So I said, I'll be happy to have lunch with you and catch up. So I met him yesterday and another partner attorney, and we had lunch. And the bottom line, first he mentioned, he's like, oh, you have a probate a probate website. I was like, yeah, that's right. And then we started talking more about the online presence, but I'll come back to that. He wanted to meet because the real estate people he's been working with for the number of years, he wants to find someone new. It's not that they did a bad job, but maybe it's he just wants to find somebody new. I don't need to share any more details than that. But I was like, great, I'm happy. This is I can't tell you what great timing this is, because last year I took some time off. This year I'm so excited to actually. I've never been more excited to be doing this real estate work. I'm just excited. Like you mentioned, the accumulation of everything that the wisdom and knowledge and resources that I've been able to put together here. I said I'm thrilled. But let me tell you, you mentioned I have a website. That's not the most important thing I have in terms of a probate online presence. What else is important is what I would call the online asset is the trifecta of Google business page, YouTube, and then a website. And then the partner said, oh, and I'm going to, what's it called? When you take someone's words and put them together. I'm having a loss of vocabulary. Summarize. That's not the word, but I'm going to summarize. So he said, I talked to this idiot lender, and he said, doing these 30-second videos on, and I was like, stop. I was like, that is not what we want to do. Those are, social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, those are for people scrolling. It's not for business. We want to be searchable. We want to have evergreen content. We want to have educational content, and we want to provide a service to the community. And I told him, I say, look, I get a call at least once a month for someone looking for an attorney because I come up on most searches first for probate in Las Vegas or probate Henderson, and I spend no money on it. This is all organic and natural. And so now their eyes kind of opened up. Like, wow, I was like, get out of that stupid, that BS. That's not what we want to do. Is there one out of 2 million people that do something on Instagram and make some money? Sure. But it's not duplicatable. I think we talked about this, it's a former Playboy model who sells luxury properties in Miami. Like, we're not that. I'm definitely no model.
Well, she also had a boyfriend who spent $100,000 promoting that Instagram reel, and they'll tell you that. And so they have huge followings, but what they don't tell you is the money it takes to drive those huge followings versus, like you say, organic, versus you and me doing this video. We're going to have 250 views. 6 minutes, that's going to be 10 hours, 12 hours of time that you and I will have people watching us that we're going to spend maybe an hour on total. That's like a 10-to-1 ratio. That's what I focus on.
And it's people looking for this content, for this information on Facebook and Instagram. We're scrolling. A lot of people are probably on the toilet or sitting in bed or watching TV and just, doing a side thing. They're not looking for the business. It's not the right place to attract the customers that we want. Right. Because then he told me, he's like, we did some marketing things and we didn't, the customers we got were no good. I'm like, yeah, forget all that stuff. I'm now going to help them. We're going to set up a time next week where we're going to get on a Zoom call, and I'm going to share with him everything that I've been doing, because, Bill, in our space, and there's, even whether it's probate real estate or just probate and estate planning attorneys, there's almost nobody providing information to help people in the community of this process. So I think I shared with you last year, I closed another probate file. It was a younger guy. He's like in his 30s. Found me online. And I asked him, well, how'd you find me? He emailed me through my website, but nobody finds my website. You have to you found me on my Google business page, or you just did a Google search and somewhere you found me. And he said, well, I was on your YouTube. And I was like, oh, why was that? He's like, well, mom died. And like anybody, whether person is in 30s, 60s, or 80s, most people don't know anything about how to start probate or what to do about it.
Right.
And he's like, you're the only one that had any information here in Las Vegas.
Right.
Now, I don't believe I'm the only one, but I'm the only one that did it the right way so that Google will recognize my content. Okay, I'm willing to bet that I don't need to bet. I know that there are other people, other real estate people here in Las Vegas who have had the same kind of similar content and information, but they're not discoverable because they're not cooperating or doing the things that Google and YouTube want to do, so that they can be, so people who are looking for our services, looking for our information, can find them online.
Yeah, and Google's glad to help people find you online. They make money when people search for stuff, so that's really, they want people to find what they're looking for. And if you're make it easier for them to promote you, then they're happy to do that. Let them do the heavy lifting as well.
Yeah, and so again, I'm going to thank you a million times forever because of a lot of things I learned from you. I'm now able not only to create a new referral relationship with a very active law firm in town, but I'm going to help them build their own online presence. Nice. They'll track their own business, and they'll track people looking for probate that he'll end up sending back to me. I mean, it's just like it's just a win-win-win-win.
Well, let me throw out to you. I'm always looking for guests on Probate Weekly. If they're a good attorney, if they're a great attorney, love to interview them and expose them to our national platform. And I just, as you know, launched the new podcast, Estate Planning Weekly. If you're estate planning, love to interview them on that as well. So keep us in mind for that.
I'm gonna hold on. Bill, I'm so glad you said that, because even though I watch your Probate Weekly every week for years, I forget to refer the attorneys that I work with. So I'm going to write that down right now.
Well, you can use me as your marketing platform, because they're not going to call me with a sale in Las Vegas. They're going to call you. But if I help them get a bunch of views and get new customers, they're going to come to you. So that, to me, that just is a non. It just makes all the sense in the world, and I'm glad to do it and help. The bad news about this podcast format is that I have to cut this short because I have a 3:00 schedule right behind here with an attorney, a meeting with an attorney. So we've gone a little bit longer, but Randy, it's just so easy to talk to you. I always enjoy, and I think that's the other lesson for everybody on here. Randy and I started talking about doing podcasts a couple years ago when I was already into it a little bit. And he said, well, it's not for me. I'm not really ready. I'm going to do this or that. But you notice how if you just talk to people, they're glad to talk about what they're interested in. And I think for everybody watching this, share what you do well, share what you can do to help other people, and the business will follow. And that's the main thing that's helped you build your business, and the thing that's helped us together work together effectively. So Randy, thank you so much for being on the call this time and previous times as well. I really do appreciate your time.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Bill. And I look forward to talking to you soon. And always, I look forward to all of your great interviews.
Fantastic. All the best. Thanks so much. And everybody else, this is Bill, Probate Weekly, probateweekly.com. I'm at Bill Gross Probate on social media. Call, text, or email. Put your comments in, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. If I can help in any way, please reach out. As always, make today your best day ever. Thanks so much.